there'll probably be one or two drag-ins. We're going to finish Purgatorio today. So that way you'll have something for Thanksgiving, to be thankful for. So I'm going to zip. Well, I'm going to try to zip, as much as I ever zip. I think we left off Canto 11. So that's only 22 to go. And I'm just going to, really kind of hit high spots of most of these. Some of them we'll spend a little bit more time talking about. Some of them that have, highly philosophical passages, because of the exigencies of time, we're just going to have to skip. And one or two of those, because it would take days to really discuss, like, the nature of things, the nature of the soul. He takes care of in roughly 20, 30 lines. It would take us a long time to unpack all that. So, begin with Canto 11, and notice how it begins. Okay, the first, 20, almost 25 lines are kind of a recitation and expansion of the Lord's Prayer. Okay, these are the proud, remember. So, our Father, dwelling in the heavenly spheres, your name be praised. Peace in your realm come down to us, for we ourselves cannot attain to that. Okay, that's talking about there in purgatory as well as down below on earth and such. And Dante and Virgil go on, and we're told, line 25, then praying for themselves and us, Godspeed, these shadows made their way beneath such loads as sometimes in our nightmares can be seen. Around and all around on the first ledge they go. Bear in mind, remember, they're bent over and they've got heavy stones on their back. Now, we're going to meet another group, can't remember where, top of my head. We're going to meet another group who are essentially bent over, except they're going on their bellies. Okay? But they don't have stones on their backs. All right? So these do. So what we see in Canto 11, I've got multiple notes here I'm looking at, is those who suffer from the sin of pride. Okay? Notice the way purgatory is structured. Again, you've got ante-purgatory like this, and then purgatory begins. And it's pointed like a mountain, okay? And it's got 7 levels. And into each level, going up, there will be stairs, okay? Notice this is the 7th. It's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, obviously, it's the first, but it's the 7th from up here. And it's what? It's the largest. And it's the hardest. All right? You can't get into here until what? Till you cross over those 3 steps. Remember that we talked about the other day? That probably are confession, contrition, penance, and stuff. So it's the largest in the sense that, at the base, the mountain is the largest. And so that's where they are. Right? But they have to get through the sin of pride in order to get to any of these other sins. Why? Because the church has taught that pride is the primal sin. It is the first sin. It is the greatest sin. Every other sin flows from or devolves from, if you want, the sin of pride. So what kind of pride do we see here? It's not just general pride. There are kind of 3 classes of pride. Pride of race. And we see people, we're not going to discuss the passages, but they meet and talk to people, okay, that emphasize their pride of race, that is where they're from, okay, pride of achievement, what they've done, and then pride of domination, meaning rulers, emperors, leaders. Okay? Now I pointed out, I think it was last week, that of all these 7 sins, and then you go up, to the earthly paradise. Of all these 7, Dante suffers from 3. That is, 3 of the sins that are included here are ones that Dante kind of acknowledges to us, that he experiences. You've got pride. What's the second one? What's on the going up? Envy. Third is wrath. Okay. Pride is one. Because if you remember, as Dante goes around, what does he do? So he can converse with everybody. He says this is so he can converse with it. He bends over. Okay? This is his form, his figure, symbolically telling us this is a problem. Okay? Wrath is another one of Dante's. Okay? And then you go all the way up to this one. Lust. This is gluttony. This is various words for this. Covetousness, avarice, and number 4 is sloth. Okay, so pride, envy, wrath, or anger, sloth, covetousness, gluttony, and lust. Dante, particular, the ones that weigh on him are pride, wrath, and anger, and lust. You know, he's got some reason to be wrathful and angry. He's been kicked out of his own town, and he dies as an exile from Florence. Okay? And then lust is going to be dealt with. I mean, the P gets removed once he goes from there up to here. But Beatrice up here kind of alludes to it. Okay? That we'll see. I think we'll actually make it there. So, I mean, we hear on page 209, this guy's speaking, trying to find his name, if it's, Umberto, okay? And he says, my arrogance did harm to me, because of this, till line 70, till God is satisfied, I needs must bear this weight among the dead, since I did not while still with those who live. What's he talking about? Because he showed such arrogance, that's pride, all right? So, they talk about earthly fame, that's pride of achievement, etc. Go on to Canto 12. Paired up like oxen, yoked to move as one, so onward with that burdened soul I went. That is the soul he was speaking with. But I think that also means Dante's soul is burdened. Okay? So, Cantos 11 and 12 are dealing with the sin of anger still. And so what do we see in Canto 12? Line 22 and following. I mean, 22 through, I don't think I noted where it ended. 72. Okay? Dante sees carvings along this cornice as he's making his way. Every one of the carvings is what? An image of the proud. Okay? So we see, line 25, he says, mark now to this side, I here saw the one nobler created than all creatures, Satan. Or, to give him his proper name, Lucifer. He only becomes Satan when he's cast down. Because what does Satan mean? Anybody? Nope, that's Lucifer. Lucifer means bearer of light. Okay? The I-fer, Latin has a f, where English will often have either a B, b sound, or a p sound. Okay? Fish, piscus. Okay? Take my history of the English language class whenever I teach it again. Or take Dr. McDaniel's in the spring and you'll go over all that. Lucifer means bearer of light. Okay? The name Satan means adversary or opponent, if you want. Okay? So he says, I see the one nobler created than all creatures else, what? Thrown down in flashing thunder fire from heaven. He sees an image, a carving of Satan continually being thrown down from heaven. And then what else does he see? And we get a whole bunch of names from classical literature. Most of them are from Ovid, because Dante does not read Greek. He had not read the Odyssey, but a lot of the stories that are in the Odyssey are in Ovid's Metamorphoses, which are written in Latin, which Dante knew very well. He sees Saul, he sees Arachne, he sees Rehoboam, okay? Several others, which we're going to skip. And we hear line 70, strut on, you sons of Eve, with head held high, display your pride, and do not bend your face to see the errors of your evil way. Well, back up just a moment to 64. What master of the pencil or the brush could reproduce those shadows and those strokes, which there would make the sharpest mind admire? The dead seemed dead, and the living seemed alive. In other words, it looks like these are living carvings, so that the dead really look dead, and those who are alive really do look to be alive. And all I trod upon bowed low. I saw far truer than had those who'd seen it true. Okay? They keep going on along when we're told line 76, when he, who always kept his mind ahead, began. Now straighten up and lift your bows. The moment's past to go caught up like this. See over there? An angel quickens pace. Okay? This is Virgil addressing Dante. He's telling him what? Stand up. Why? Because he's completed his penance for this level. Okay? What's the angel going to do? Opening his arms, line 91, then opening his wings, he said, now come, the steps are very near, climb. Now the climb could not be easier. Why? P's gone. O human nature, you are born to fly. Why fail and fall at merely puffs of wind? Human nature, you are born to fly. The angel is telling Dante, and through Dante us, what humanity is meant for. He doesn't mean meant flying like an eagle. He means ascending. Okay? Ascending. Meant to become like God, which we're going to hear at the end of Purgatory. All right? So he led us where the cleft was in the rock, and here what? He struck his wings across my brow. Every time Dante has one of the P's removed, right? It's removed because an angel touches him with its wings. And bear in mind, the angel, even in the Middle Ages, in Dante's time, nobody thought angels actually had wings. Okay? The wings were merely indicative that the angel was a messenger. The angel is a heavenly postal carrier. That's it. UPS man. Okay? So, Dante now has, when he arrives at the cornice or the level of envy, he has 6 P's. The hardest one is gone. Every time he removes one, what happens? Okay? What else? He's rising. It's like he's becoming lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay? So, line 109. They go through the steps. While turning, we 2 persons to that slope, voices sang out, Beate pauperes. What is that? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Okay? 110. For they shall what? That is Matthew 111, 110. It's one of the cantos I didn't write down. Verses 2. Canto 12. That's why I wasn't finding it. Yeah, blessed are the poor in spirit, Matthew 5:3. For they shall see God, I believe it is. Yeah, Matthew 5:3. Okay? So, as no mere speech could properly relate, how different from the thoroughfares of hell are those through which we pass. Why? For here with songs we enter, there with fierce lamentations. We were by now ascending that great stair, and I, it seemed, was lighter now by far than I had seemed while still on level ground. Dante asks, so, that P's been lifted for me, why do I feel like I'm hardly straining? Virgil answers, 121. When the P's that mark your brow remaining still, though growing now more faint, have all, as is the first, been sheared away, your steps will then be conquered by good will. So notice, as he makes his way, it's like the P of envy is starting to fade. Right? But it takes the angel to fully remove it. Your steps will then be conquered by goodwill, and being thus impelled towards the heights, will feel no strain but only sheer delight. Impelled. Not that an outside force will be impelling him. It's what? It's his nature. He's being drawn to, as we've talked about before, the summum bonum, the highest good, which is God. Right? So Dante reaches up and he can feel there's only 6 P's there now. And Virgil smiles as he does so. Okay? Canto 13. So now he's completely left this. He's now in the second level, or cornice as Dorothy Sayers calls it, which is the sin of envy. Those who are being punished for the sins of envy, what's their punishment? These folks had rocks on their back and they're bent over facing the ground. Why? Because they walked with head held high and so arrogant during life. Those who suffer from the sin of envy, what's envy? Is it jealousy? Is it merely wanting what somebody else has? Because that's more gluttony. That's more covetousness or avarice. Envy is this notion that you think, I mean, it's partially related to pride, which is why it's so close to it. You don't want somebody else to be above you. Okay? So you look at them and you kind of wish ill will upon them. He's got a note in the back of his about it, and Sayers in hers. Sayers makes the comment, the envious man is afraid of losing something by the admission of superiority in others. Okay? Afraid of losing something by acknowledging somebody else is greater than I am. Therefore, he what? Looks with grudging hatred upon other men's gifts and good fortune, taking every opportunity to run them down or deprive them of their happiness. Yeah, well, you've got but. Okay? So that even if there is an element of praise, it's immediately undercut. It's, well, should I even go there? Because that'll really get me off track. It's modern media. What does the media seem to exist for? The news media, let's say, journalism. Do we ever hear stories, the quote-unquote good stories? It's what? It's all about tearing somebody down. And there's a lot of tearing down going on right now, right? I mean, I never watched him because he's just a liberal blowhard. Charlie Rose, okay? Gone. CBS, gone, okay? Al Franken, his days are probably numbered in the U.S. Senate. 3 women have now come out. Roy Moore from Alabama probably never should have, won't even go there. Mm-hmm. How many people in Hollywood? There isn't going to be a Hollywood in 10 years if what has started, if that avalanche keeps going. Okay? Why? Because there's an awful lot of people who look at people who are high and mighty. I mean, think of what Aristotle said about tragedy and the tragic hero. People who look at those who are high and mighty and they're what? They're envious that they have superiority over them. And so, therefore, you try to knock them down a few notches. So Dante says, the mountain there, which as one climbs takes ill away, is chiseled back a second time. That is, my drawing is not quite right because it should be more like this. You go up and then like this and then like this. Right? Skip down a few lines. So the envious are portrayed how? Their eyes are sewn closed. If their eyes are sewn closed, then where can they look? Inwards only. So they can't look at somebody else's faults. They've got to turn inwardly. So he says, line 24, our will so quick that as we traveled now from where we'd been before, our will so quick that is our desire. Then unseen flying towards us now were heard the voices of spirits all delivering a courteous welcome to the feast of love. Okay, the feast of love is the Lord's Supper. But here it's referencing probably that meaning welcome, because if you're here, you're ultimately going where? You're on your way to heaven. So you will be welcomed there. But we also get the first voice cries out, Vinum non habent, or habent. Wine they have none. This is Mary at the wedding of Cana. Guy comes to her, and she says, go talk to Jesus. Okay? Why? Why is this one of the kind of counter spells? Or not spells, that's not spells. Okay? It's not magic. Okay? And then he goes behind, and then we hear another one. I'm Orestes, and did not stay. But the guy who says I'm Orestes isn't really, if you look at the note, that's Phylides, who steps in for Orestes. Okay? Another says, Virgil says, Dante says, Father, what voices can these be? And as I asked, there came, just look, a third, saying, love those by whom you suffer harm. Do good unto those who do ill unto you. This is Christ speaking. Okay? But the person saying this isn't Christ. The person is merely quoting Christ. That's what each of these three are doing. They're quoting somebody who did what? Put somebody else before them. Okay? This confine scourges, Virgil says, the sin of envious hate. And so the skeins that form the stinging lash vibrate with love. The whip that is metaphorically used is made out of essentially statements of love. Because the opposite of envy is, oops, that won't come off. Is really this. And I mean, this is obviously the opposite of that too. Okay? Humility is an act of love. Okay? So they go on and skip down to 85. Which one are we in? We're in 13, right? I'm trying to keep in my mind aware of how far we've gone. 85, Dante speaks to one of these and says, you who are confident to see the light supreme, which your desires are set upon alone. Okay, he's saying this to people whose eyes are sewn shut. All they can see now is darkness. You who are confident, you'll get there. Okay. So I began, may your grace soon clarify the scum that blurs your consciences, and let the streams of mine descend with all of memory's power through you once more. Tell me if any soul among you is Italian. It may, if I hear that, go well for him. In other words, because when I go back to earth, we can pray. Okay? We are, dear brother, now all citizens of one true place. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you're Italian or not. Whoever said that says, up here, no Italian, there's no German, there's no French. We are all citizens of the heavenly kingdom. But you must mean who winged his pilgrim life through it. You mean back when we were down there. Pilgrims. In other words, Italy is merely what? It's like a Motel 6. You're just going through. You don't live there. That's not home. So the guy says, I was Sienese, line 106. And here repair the wicked life I led, weeping so he will grant himself to us. Sapia, though not sapient means wise, I was called. Okay? And he said, and I, to witness other people's harm, felt joy more than at my own good luck. When I saw someone a little bit above me suffer, I felt joy. In fact, he says he felt more joy at that than he felt at his own good luck. Okay? Or she, sorry, not he, she. So, they keep going on. Canto 14, they're still dealing with envy. Dante meets a few other people. He hears voices at the end cry out. Line 133, they'll murder me, whoever captures me. That's Cain. Okay? Which is why God puts the mark of Cain on him, so that people know don't touch him. Okay? We hear line 139, I am a Glaros who became a stone, etc. Canto 15. They keep moving. One of the ways we know is not only does Dante tell us, but we see time passing. All right? And it's 3 p.m., lines 2 and 3. And the messenger comes. And the messenger tells Dante and Virgil, line 30, to climb. And soon to see such thing as these will bring not stupor, but delight to you as great, as you by nature, okay, by your birth, by your design, by your purpose, are disposed to feel. So we came to the place where the angel was, 34, and the blessed creature said in tones of joy, enter this stair less steep than those before. And we hear, Beati misericordes. Blessed are the merciful. Okay? Why? Because mercy, humility is not an act. Humility is not something you do. Okay? So I said humility was the opposite, but it's not really. Humility put into action is mercy. Okay? Blessed are the merciful. We're told, line 37. And rejoice, you conqueror, were sung. Why? What did they overcome? What did they conquer? And this is probably an echo of the book of Revelation, where we're told those who overcome, what? Get a white stone, get a new robe, get a new name, etc. So, Dante asked, what did that spirit of Romagna, line 44, mean to speak of mutual exchange and bands? Virgil says he knows the damage done by his main flaw. Don't therefore be surprised if he chides us to lessen penitential tears. And then he goes on and he gives a sermon, essentially, a discourse, a long talk on love. Okay? And after the sermon on love, Dante sees a vision. And it's a vision of humility, of meekness. Okay? So, Virgil talking about love. Let's see here. How much time do we have? He says, line 49, because your human longings point to where portions grow smaller in shared fellowship. Okay? Your human longings, your earthly pleasures, they do what? They grow smaller in shared fellowship. Well, let's just use a basic human longing, food. If I order a pizza and I eat it by myself, I've got the whole pizza myself. If I order a pizza for all of us, how much of the pizza do I have? 2, 5, 7, 8. I get 1/8. I get less. Okay? Down here. Now, see where Virgil goes with this. Meanness of mind must make the bellows sigh. Meanness, smallness, littlest of mind. If love, though, seeking for the utmost sphere, love. He's saying love. Love does what? It elevates. It lifts up. The utmost sphere is the Empyrean. That's where God dwells. He's saying if love aims for God, right? It's one of the dominant ideas throughout the Divine Comedy. It does. That's essentially what Socrates and Aristotle say. They just use different language than love. So, if love, seeking for the utmost sphere, should ever wrench your longings to the skies, that is, rather than filling your belly, thinking of your soul, such fears, what fears? This idea that my portion will get smaller in fellowship. Such fears, lost my place, would have no place within your breast. He's saying that even down here on earth, if I don't think about fulfilling earthly delights, but heavenly delights, love down here will say that the more I give, what? Not the less I have. Just the opposite. Not give like money. The more I give of myself, what? The more of myself I have to give. In other words, love is ever, think of it not just as ascending. Expanding. Here, I'll give a pop culture reference. Because we are coming up, not Thanksgiving 2 days, and then what's the next major holiday? Christmas? Black Friday, for those who worship the god of consumerism. Okay? Christmas. What little book did Theodore Geisel, a.k.a. Dr. Seuss, write for Christmas? How the Grinch Stole Christmas. What happens to the Grinch? Christmas morning. It's one of the most profound books ever written. No, his heart grows 10 times its size. When he goes down Christmas morning and he finds out all the little Who's in Whoville are still singing, even though they don't have any presents, they don't have any food, they don't have any wrappers. And he goes up to the top of the Mount Crump and he sits there and he ponders. And he says, maybe Christmas doesn't come from a present. Maybe it doesn't come from a gift. Maybe Christmas is something else. And he looks inside, and what happens? Yeah, his heart does what? It expands. It doesn't, just lift him up and he becomes a saint, Saint Grinch. It grows larger than it was. For there, the more that we can speak of ours, that is down here, 2-year-old, two 2-year-olds, put them in a fighting cage, give them one toy. 2 go in, 1 come out, mine! Okay? The more we can speak of ours, the more each one possesses of the good. And in that cloister, Caritas, love, burns brighter. Okay? He's not talking about ours possessions. I hunger more for satisfaction now than if, Dante says, I said you'd not said anything. I gather in my mind still greater doubt. In other words, I don't get you, Virgil. What do you're... How can it be that good distributed to many owners makes in that respect each one far richer than if few had shared? How, if I had that pie now and I distributed it and we each had 1/8, how could I be richer then? Virgil, 64. You thrust your mind back down there and do what? Think still in terms of earthly things. You tease out darkness from the light of truth. He's saying, you're looking as the old rock song says, for love in all the wrong places. The good that infinite beyond all worlds, up here, God, is there above will run to love like rays of light that come to anything that shines. It gives itself proportion to the fire, so that, as far as Caritas extends, eternal worth increases over it. The more Caritas, this isn't Eros love. This is divine love. This is the kind of love that wishes the best for each person. Wishes the best for somebody else. Okay? The more of that you have for someone, what? The more of it you have to give. In other words, the individual kind of becomes a conduit. Okay? The more there are who fix their minds up there, he's talking down here, the more down here who fix their minds up there, what? The more good love there is and more to love, and each as might a mirror gives to each. That is, and if you meet others like this, you act like what? A mirror. What's a mirror do? It increases the image. Okay? And if these words of mine don't slake your thirst, you'll see Beatrice. She'll explain it. Press forward then. For these 5 wounds that heal, gone. For these 5 wounds that heal through all the pain they bring will soon be gone, as are by now the other 2. So Dante says, intending here to say, you fed me well, I saw that I had reached the upper ring, and there my eyes entranced now silenced me. For in a sudden scene, ecstasy, what is an ecstasy? An out-of-body experience. It's literally, it means the soul leaves the body. Okay? In a sudden ecstasy, he says, I was, it seemed, caught up and made to see a temple, many thronging all around. There at the door a lady who stood, sweet in her manner as a mother is, who says, why, dear son, have you done this to us? This is Luke 2. It's when Mary, Joseph, and Jesus come, when Jesus is 12, to do the proper rites at the temple. Mary and Joseph, part of the caravan, head back up to Nazareth, but Jesus stays behind. Why? Because he's quizzing the doctors in the temple. Okay? And Mary comes back and finds him and says, what are you doing? What does Jesus reply? Anybody know? Don't you know I have work to do in my Father's house? Kind of a little clue there. Either that or, he was really full of himself. And she, falling silent, what first appeared now disappeared from view. A second woman appears to him and says some things. So, I want to pick up with 104. What shall we do to those that wish us ill if those that love us are condemned by us? Christ essentially says, what good is it if you repay good for good? Isn't it much more to repay good for ill? I saw next crowds inflamed in fires of wrath, all yelling out, kill, kill, stoning a young man to the point of death. This is Stephen in the book of Acts. What does Stephen say? As all the Jews are getting ready to stone him, and Paul is standing there holding all the coats. Saul, standing there holding all the coats. Stephen says, forgive them. He kind of echoes Christ, for they know not what they do. Okay? 115. When once my soul turned outwards once again to beings truly there outside itself, I'd straight I saw towards not false error. Okay? Turning outward, not turning inward. And Virgil says, straighten up. You've come along for half a mile or more, veiling your eyes, your legs turned all askew like someone in the grip of death. Okay, so go on to Canto 16. Look at that, we're almost halfway now. Canto 16, he goes up into the next cornice, the third cornice of wrath. So let's just start doing this. Okay. The cornice of wrath, the people who suffer from wrath, the people who are being purged of wrath, go about how? All the other cornices, it's clear. That as you can see the sun clearly, you can see the ground clearly, except for the guys who have their eyes on it. Here, the wrathful go about in smoke. Why? Why smoke? What does wrath do to you? Or anger, if you want. Yeah. It keeps you unable to reason. Okay? It blinds you to reason. So, line 10. As a blind man goes behind his guide, for fear he'll wander or collide with things that might well maim him or perhaps could kill. And notice there's this kind of thing, I think in almost every one of the cantos, where Dante doesn't know what's going to come next. But he uses an image of a blind, okay, here like the wrathful. He says, I too went on through acrid, filthy air. And Virgil says, take care, don't get cut off. And now he hears voices. And it seemed that each was praying to the Lamb of God who takes all sin away for mercy and for peace. Okay? The words they uttered first were Agnus Dei. Behold, this is the words of the prophet John the Baptist. Okay? When he sees Christ at the river, he's talking to his disciples. And he says, behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. And then that gets turned into a hymn in the early church. The self-same text and tune from all of them, so that it seemed they all sang it as one. Dante asks, are these spirits? He says, yes. And anger is the knot they're working free. Notice, it's not something just kind of laid on them. It's a, because what happens when you feel really angry? You're all knotted and balled up and tense. Okay? So notice, they have to work at this. They have to get all that tension out. So Dante asks them, my fellow creature who now wash to go once more in beauty to your maker, if you will follow close, we'll hear of wonders. Still swallowed, line 37. One of them says something. 37, still there it is again, swallowed. Man, can't say that word. Swaddled. In the clothes that death dissolves, so I make my way above and come here from the agonies of hell. And if God circles me with such grace that I, as he desires, should see his court, notice that. Circles me. Dante's here now. What does he mean? Brings me up to the Empyrean. Okay? If my rotation is such that I arrive there, he says what? And he desires that I should see his court in ways beyond what men of our day know. Then do not hide who you were till your death, but speak and tell me. Am I near the rise? In other words, Dante wants to know, am I near the place that gets me from here to here? He just got here. It's almost like he wants a shortcut. I'm not saying he does, saying it's almost like. So, the speaker says, line 49, to make your climb, just take the straight way on. In other words, what does Dante need to do? The work, exactly. He's got to do the next thing. Okay? I pray that you should pray for me when you're up there. Through faith, Dante says, I bind myself to do what you demand. Okay? Let's see here. Virgil then gives is it Virgil? No, the guy Dante is speaking with. Then gives a little homily, discourse, lecture. On fate versus free will, or determinism, if you want, versus free will. But it's not determinism like we use the term in modern psychology and such. It's more of it's more astrological. Okay, The idea that the stars and planets influence us. So, the speaker says to Dante's question, the world is truly, as your words declare, a sterile place where every virtue falls, pregnant with viciousness that blankets all. Point me, I beg you, to the reason why, so I can then see and show others too. Tell me why the world is such a rotten place, why everyone is so mean and vile and vicious, so I can explain to them back down there. Some place the cause in stars, some here below. Some say the reason they are the way they are is because of the stars. I know some of you are taking Shakespeare. Hopefully you've read King Lear, because what does Edmund say at the beginning of King Lear? He is the way he is. Why? Because he chooses to be. Gloucester implies, okay, Edmund is the way he is because of the star, the planetary influence that he was born under. So the guy replies, 65, the world is blind, and yes, that's where you're from. You living there derives the cause of all straight from the stars alone, as if these made all move in mere necessity. Were that so, and you would be destroyed the freedom of your will, and justice fail in giving good its joy and grief its ill. In other words, if it were all because of the stars, then the wrathful couldn't be punished for what they're guilty of. Why? Because they couldn't be guilty. If everything is fated, if everything is determined, then we have no human responsibility. That is, proud? Nope, not my fault. The devil made me do it. The planet made me do it. Because I'm a particularly lecherous person? It's because I was born under Venus. Because I'm a particularly angry fighting person? It's because I was born under Mars. Okay? So, that's his argument there. But he says, 74. And yet suppose I did, you're given light to know what's good and bad, and free will too, which if it can endure beyond its early battles with the stars, and if it's nourished well, will conquer all. Of better and of greater power you are free subjects. You have a mind that planets cannot rule or stars concern. So if the present world has gone astray, what? The reason lies in you. Okay? In other words, also he seems to be suggesting, Dante would have been completely unaware of this, the whole victim mentality. The victim mentality says it's not my fault, it's what somebody else did. The speaker there says, no, there's, you got to look at personal action as well. Okay? Canto 17, still dealing with wrath and anger. We have examples of it. Line 43, images, okay, and following. And then we hear as the angel of generosity comes, as the angel comes to wipe away Dante's P, we hear line 67 and following. He feels the movement of wings fanning at his face, and he hears the words, Beati Pacifici, blessed are the peacemakers. Okay? Why? Because that's the opposite of anger. It's the opposite of wrath. Dante asks, as they make their way to where the stairway rises no more, line 82. What offense is purged within the circle where we are? Our feet stand still. Don't let your words do so. The love of good, when this falls short of what it ought to be, is here restored. But so you may more plainly understand, turn, pay attention, and from this short wait you'll carry off some worthwhile fruit. And he gives another exposition on love. 17 or 18. 17. Okay. And then Virgil goes on and explains for the next, 70 lines? No, not quite 70 lines. 40 lines or so. He explains what is happening as they make their way up? He talks about the sin of each level and how it is counteracted and purged. Okay? So, for example, line 115 deals with pride. 115 in the next line or two. Line 118 deals with envy. 121 and following deals with anger. 130 deals with sloth. If love is slack in drawing you to view, what happened to Dante as he stepped up into here? He stopped moving. That's sloth. It's indifference. Okay? The better word for it is acedia. Sometimes it's spelled with an A at the end. It's not boredom. You know, the French ennui. It's total and utter listlessness. It's not having a desire to do anything, to go anywhere, to think anything. It's just like shutting down. Okay? And then you have lines 133 and following. Greed and avarice are mentioned. Gluttony. 136, lust. Okay. Canto 18. Get another discourse on love and free will, and we see the spirits of sloth. Okay. So, how do the spirits of sloth counter their previous sin? They're constantly moving. Constant activity. The opposite of pride, you know, being proud, standing up, haughty, was to be bent over. So, sloth, not doing anything, the opposite of that is constant movement. All right? Virgil goes on. And Virgil says, line 76. Virgil replies to Dante. When Dante says, I can as far as reason sees respond. Beyond that, faith's required, so he to me, and you must therefore wait for Beatrice. Why? Because Virgil can't talk about faith. He never experienced it. They hear voices of haste, activity. We go on to Canto 9. Dante has a dream, okay? And in this dream, he sees a siren. This is the siren of Ulysses' siren, or Odysseus' siren in the Odyssey. And what does she say? Line 19. I am the lovely siren, so full of pleasure to the ear my tune that mariners I magic in mid-ocean, and Ulysses entranced to hear my chant I turned off course. Rarely do those who've learned my ways depart, I bring them full content. And then before that mouth closed up once more, a lady, holy and alert, appeared. She crushed the other's power, and she says, Virgil! And Virgil wakes up, okay, and says, get up, let's find an opening you can take. 40. Following in his track, I bore my brow, as people do. When loaded down with thought, they make themselves the half arch of a bridge. He's bent over again. And here's the crossing. 49. He feels the feather again. He moved his feathers, fanned us both, affirming that qui lugent. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. The qui lugent are the blessed, that is, those who mourn. To them the gift of consolation comes. Virgil, why are you staring at the ground? Okay. Dante has just gone where? Gone through there. Okay. When once beyond the angel climbing on, these were the words with which my guide began. Dante, I'm made to make my way in so much doubt by that weird vision which so wraps me up I can't stop thinking about it. He tells him who he saw, And he says, now loosed out to circle number 5, I saw there people all around who wept, each turned face downwards, lying on the earth. The covetous and those full of avarice or greed, why are they lying on the earth? I mean, they're not bent over. They are lying. They're kind of crawling on the ground. Okay. Well, that's not necessarily the absolute opposite of this. We're going to meet those who show the opposite of this. What? This is desire, right? It's desire for what, though? Stuff. That is, their eyes are turned to earthly pleasures. So therefore, they get down and dirty with the earth. Okay? It kind of repels them out. So we hear, they say, adhese pavimento anima mei, Psalm 119, my soul cleaves to the dust. All right? Pavimento, however, means paving. I heard them saying this, but sighing deep, so what they said was hardly understood. You chosen ones of God, whose sufferings are by hope and justice made less hard to bear, Dante asks, show me the way. And they say, if you come here exempt from lying flat and wish to find the quickest way ahead, your right hands will be always to the out. In other words, as with every other circle, turn to the right. Turn to the right. And all these people, by the way, are making their way to the right up the mountain. We're going to meet one group only up here in the lustful who are going the opposite direction. Everybody else, even in the group of the lustful, is going to the right. Okay? So, we're told, lines 113 and following, by whoever is speaking, and I don't see a name real quickly, that what the sin being punished here is, divorced from God, my all was avarice. That is my desire. That's desire divorced from God. And I am punished as you see for that. Well, avarice will do is now made clear through penance in these souls inverted so. That mountain has no pain more harsh than this, because our eyes were fixed on earthly things, at no point raised to look towards the heights, so justice sinks them here within the earth. Since avarice extinguished all our love for any good, and so good works were lost, justice here holds us tight within its grip. We're captives, bound at both hands and feet, and here stretched out, unmoving, we shall stay, as long as our just Lord may think it right. When they're there long enough, then they're released. Okay? Canto 20. They make their way on, and we hear line 10. Curses on you, you wolf bitch ages old. The same wolf that had stopped Dante, okay, in the wood at the beginning. We have the earthquake. We have a reference to St. Nicholas, okay, and several others who did the opposite of avarice. So if avarice is desiring earthly treasure, essentially, what's the opposite? Giving it away. St. Nicholas, according to the tradition of the church, the one who Santa Claus is based on, St. Nicholas was a bishop in Myra of Lycia, and he heard about a local man who had 3 daughters, and the man doesn't have enough money for the dowry for his 3 daughters. And so his 3 daughters are talking about prostituting themselves, okay, selling themselves on the street. So Nicholas, who is very wealthy, each night, 3 successive nights, throws a bag of money through the window. So the first night, the bag of money is for the eldest daughter. Provides her a dowry, so she doesn't have to sell herself. Second night, next eldest. Third night, youngest. Okay, that's the whole. One version of the thing is that he throws the bag of money down the chimney. Thus, the stockings by the chimney, etc. Okay. So they keep going on, and they hear, Dante and Virgil here, line 136, Gloria in excelsis Deo. That's the song of the choir that the shepherds heard outside Bethlehem on the night of the birth of Christ. Okay? Where was Christ born? Bethlehem, in a manger, in a cave. Why? His parents were poor. Okay? So that's the opposite. I mean, it's just kind of canceling all that. So, Canto 21. We had the earthquake in Canto 20. So 21, they meet another pilgrim, let's say, Statius. Real person. Wrote a long poem called the Thebaid. Wrote another one about Achilles. Okay. And he explains the earthquake was caused by his release from one of the levels of purgatory, okay, that he'd been in for 500 years. And because we're running out of time. Statius talks about Virgil's influence on him and how he became a Christian through Virgil. You know, Virgil was not a Christian, but he says, your poetry led me to Christ. So let's go to 22. Okay. Dante makes his way up, and we're told the angel had by now been left behind, that angel who had turned us to gyre 6, once having shaved my brow of one more wound. So covetousness, avarice is gone. He's got 2 more sins to purge. So, they're now in gluttony. Did I say we are 22? Yeah, they're making their way to gluttony. They're still dealing with avarice. I'm going to skip a bunch. Statius talks about line 34. Please understand that avarice for me ran too far off. My own extreme, the opposite, was punished over many thousand moons. In other words, the level for avarice is for avarice and its opposite, prodigality. Not prodigality, generosity. Prodigality, spending like you got a, mint in your own backyard, buying up everything. Okay, that's what Statius says. That was my sin. Okay, and he says, with that, line 43, I realized our hands can wing too openly in wild expense. And so for that repented as for all my sins. How many will rise up with hair cropped short? Blah, 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 blah. And he goes on, he mentions a bunch of people. Going to 23, because we've only got 20 minutes left. Virgil says, line 4, to Dante, dear son, do come along. The time appointed us should be more usefully divided out. Notice, the time appointed us. It's like he's saying, we're supposed to be at set points. Okay? And then he sees and says, line 10, and then just look, both tears and songs were heard. Labia mea domine. So tuned it brought both happiness and pain to birth. This is also from Psalm 51. The one that says, have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me according to thy tender mercies. Lord, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall declare thy praise. Okay? What's this showing? Well, this is showing that the mouth is for more than just eating. Okay? Who are the gluttonous? There's 2 different kinds of gluttony. There's one, the human Hoover, just shovel everything in, the human vacuum cleaner. That's one kind of gluttony. Eat everything in sight, drink everything in sight. Okay? The other kind of gluttony is almost the opposite, but it's a fastidiousness of eating. It's kind of like, oh, Aquafina. Oh gosh, I only drink Dasani. Or, I only eat this cut of meat. I only eat food from Whole Foods. I never go to Walmart. I mean, really. How low can you be? Okay. I only dress the finest. Not true. I only drive the nicest car. That is, it's the Epicurean approach to life. Only the very, very best. Okay. If you're a Rolex, you're probably going to be stuck here for a while. Okay. So, Dante, what is this? I don't have a clue. Each one was dark, line 22. I'm not going to read that passage. That's the thing where we get the visual, image of the face. So Dante says, they see the tree. Line 64. All these people weeping as they sing, because their gullets led them past all norms, are here remade as holy, thirsting, hungry. Okay, remember you've got the people, and they can't reach the tree. Okay, it's the image of I wrote it down here. It's the image of the guy in Tartarus. Where did I write it down? Tantalus. It's the image of Tantalus in hell. Tantalus is in a stream, the water up to his chin, and when he's thirsty, he turns his chin down to drink, and the water recedes. And just like right here is a branch with fruit hanging from it. He lifts his mouth up to eat, and the branch rises for all eternity. Okay? Why? Because of what he ate in life. These people are suffering this same kind of thing. So they're going hungry. Notice how they appear. Shrunken and shriveled. Okay? So, move on to 24. Dante and Virgil go through, and Dante, you have the image of Tantalus in essentially 106. It's those suffering from the sin of gluttony. In 136 and following, the angel of temperance. What's temperance? Moderation. Comes, brushes Dante's forehead. He's got one sin to go. Okay. Which, oddly enough, this is the one that the quote-unquote modern church kind of says, implies this is the worst, sexual sin. How dare you? Dante says, really, if this is the only thing you have to worry about, you're not doing too badly. So, he gets the P of gluttony removed in 24, and we go on to 25, which is lust. Okay. Statius gives us another talk. This one on how the soul is made. Okay. And life and how the shades can exist. They come up here and they kind of take form in the air, et cetera, which we're not going to spend time talking about because in one sense it's completely irrelevant for us. 26, then, we're still in lust, and Dante sees two groups coming towards him. One coming from this direction and one going to that direction. Okay? And when the two groups meet, they stop. They pause. They greet each other. We're told. Let's see here. Line 31. I saw on either side the shadows kiss. They did not cease, however, in their course, each one content to keep the frolic brief. They stop, kiss, and go on. Okay? This group keeps going this way. This group keeps going this way. I think he's referring to what in some churches is kind of called this, what's called the kiss of peace, where you acknowledge your fellowship, your brethrenship, your sisterhood, if you want. Okay? But here, the group that's going the opposite direction, turning left, those are the sodomites, homosexuals. Why are they going leftwards? Against nature. All the others are heading to the right. Okay? And so you have the one group say, as they pass, Sodom, Gomorrah. Those are the sodomites moving left. That is, they are announcing their sin. The other group, into the cow went Pasiphae, to let the bull calf run his lust in her. She falls in love with a bull. Greek mythology, what do you expect? Falls in love with a bull, so what does she do? She has somebody make a calf so she can get inside the calf and mate with the bull. Okay? Greek mythology. So they keep going on. In 58, now let's skip that because we don't have time. We find out Caesar, line 76. It's explained to Dante why some are going left and some are going right. Those folk who do not follow in our track offended as did Caesar, who once heard you queen, that by his own troops. Okay, this is during one of the Gallic Wars campaigns. When triumphing yelled out at him, then they, as they depart, are crying Sodom to castigate themselves. This guy says our sin, by contrast, was hermaphrodite. He doesn't mean androgynous. He means hermaphrodite, male, female, together. He's saying too much. Okay. Since we paid no heed to human law, choosing to follow bestial desires or appetites, ourselves we read out our opprobrium, etc. Canto 27. We might just do it. The angel of chastity removes the final P from Dante. Okay. We have at the top of Canto 27, line 8, there's the angel. And we hear the words, Beati mundo corde, blessed are the pure in heart, for what? They shall see God. This is getting this removed. Where does he go next? What's at the topmost? The earthly paradise. This is Eden. Okay? Beautiful forest. Towards the middle of that canto, we hear line 58. Venite benedicti patris mei. Come, blessed of my Father. That's the words, Matthew 25:34, that Christ gives in the parable of the Last Judgment. You know, when he has the parable of the sheep and the goats, and he says to all these people, you come into the right side, come into heaven, because when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me water. When I was in prison, you visited me, etc. And they say, when? And he says, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these, you did it unto me. Come, blessed of my Father, into the kingdom. Okay? So, Dante has a dream. The dream is of Rachel and Leah. Okay? Old Testament story. Jacob runs away from home because he stole the birthright from his older brother who wanted to kill him. Runs away from home, goes to a distant relative named Laban, and falls in love with his youngest daughter, Rachel, because she's got great eyes. And Laban says, okay, work for me for 7 years and you can marry Rachel. Deal. Works for 7 years. On his wedding night, because she has a veil on, he goes into his wife, okay? She pulls the veil off after they've consummated the marriage, and it's the older sister, Leah. He's like, what gives? He goes to Laban. He says, sorry, can't marry the younger daughter first. 7 more years, and then you can have Leah. So he marries 7 more, weds her, works for 7 more years, then marries her, etc. Rachel and Leah are illustrative of, gotta get these right, Rachel of the contemplative life, and Leah of the active life. prayer, work. Old Catholic, motto, ora et labora, prayer and labor. Okay. The sisters of Lazarus, Mary and Martha, are also indicative of that. Okay. Jesus goes and visits, and Martha says, Lord, tell Mary to get her butt in here. I'm doing all the work. And he says, she's doing the one needful thing. You've got other stuff to do. Both are needed. It's not that we can only have the contemplative life. Because if you don't get up off your butt and stop praying, you're going to die if you don't eat. Okay? So you have to do both. That's why in monasteries, they pray and they work. Depending on the monastery, they might make bread, they might make cheese, they might make wine, might make beer, might whatever. Okay? So, Virgil tells Dante, the end of 27, you're now in a place, line 127, where I through my own powers can tell no more. I've drawn you here by skill and searching mind. Now take what pleases you to be your guide. You're now beyond the steeps, beyond all stairs. The sun, you see, is shining on your brow. You see the bushes, fresh, young grass, flowers. The earth by its own powers bring this to be. Lord of yourself, I crown and mitre you. In other words, it's almost like he's saying, Dante, be the new Adam. Or, better put, be what Adam was meant to be. Lord and master of yourself. So Dante goes into the wood. Statius is still with him, but Virgil's gone. And he meets another lady, okay? Adona, line 40, who Dante walks along this river that he comes to, or stream, and she walks along the other side. And they talk back and forth. And let's see here. She tells him, line 91, the highest good, alone its own delight, made human beings good and fit for good, and gave this place as pledge of endless peace. Through his own fault did man not dwell here long. Through his own fault, to weeping and to grief, he changed his noble laughter in sweet play. He's talking about the fall of Adam. Okay? So they keep walking along, and he sees, the source of the river. And she tells him that source comes from where? From God's own will. He wills that water to flow. It doesn't have another source. 127. It flows in this part down with all its power to take the memory of sin away, restoring on the other all good done. Its name is Lethe here, there. Here, this side, Lethe, you go through it and what? Wipes away not all memories. It wipes away all memory of sin. All faults. On the other side, it's called what? Is good or beautiful thought. Okay? So, Dante turns around. Let's see. No, actually, go on to 29. She tells Dante, let's see, should we start that? No, we'll stop. We'll pick up with 29 on Tuesday and do the last few. Go through Canto 11 of Paradiso.